Hi, my name is Meshak. This is Two Wheels Paradise, and these are the reasons why your motorcycle is smoking. Many are the times that we observe exhaust smokes coming out of our bikes and we do not even know what is going on. There is one misconception that lands the auto industry, and this is what is making people get confused. And in this video, I am going to try as best as I can to demystify this one. I want to make it very clear for everyone, those who know and also those who have no idea about exhaust smokes. I want to make everybody understand what goes on, what causes exhaust smokes, how many types of smokes we can expect to come from an exhaust system, what causes it, and what solutions, if at all there is, on how to solve that mess. Have you subscribed to the channel? Please take a second and hit that subscribe button down there. Also remember the bell icon for notifications so that next time when we upload a video, you can get notified that something nice has just landed on your most favorite YouTube channel. 3 types of exhaust smokes, what they mean, what causes it, and what solutions there is for that one. A good-looking, healthy motorcycle engine should be seen through the exhaust system, because whatever comes out of your exhaust system is a clear indication of what goes on within the engine. If your motorcycle exhaust is clean, without anything visible coming out of it, that tells you the combustion is clean and up to standard. Whatever is going on in the combustion chamber, between the plugs, the valves, the seals, the piston, the rings, the air and fuel mixture is up to standard. You can even tell from the way your motorcycle behaves in terms of performance. You can also tell from how your motorcycle behaves in terms of fuel consumption mileage. Is your motorcycle jerking at slow speed? Is your motorcycle jerking at high speed? Is your motorcycle hesitating at acceleration? Do you get backfires out of nowhere? Some of those things that we see as literal and we tend to ignore them could be red flags about something wrong going on in your combustion chamber. And the first smoke that we are going to discuss in this video is the white smoke. How many times have you ever seen a white smoke coming out of an exhaust, whether a motor vehicle exhaust or a motorcycle exhaust? White smoke, pure white, snow white, whatever you call it, just white smoke. This is very clear, doesn't have a lot of causes. It is the easiest to actually diagnose, and it could be one of the most expensive to repair. Or it could be easy to repair depending on circumstances. So the question is, What causes the white smoke to come out of your exhaust? It is only one thing. White smoke only comes out of engines that are liquid cooled. And when I say liquid cooled, I mean engines that run with radiators, engines that run with coolant. For single-cylinder air-cooled engines, don't expect white smoke to come out of nowhere. Because the reason why white smoke is coming out of your exhaust is because coolant is finding its way into the combustion chamber. Look at this. Your engine has compartments. Some of it meant for oil, others for coolant, others for fuel and air mixture. And these things are never at any point supposed to meet. If your coolant is mixing with fuel, that's a problem. It gives us the white smoke. If your coolant is mixing with oil, that's a disaster. It gives us oil that looks like vanilla yogurt. Have you ever seen oil coming out of an engine looking like porridge? A white, creamy liquid that looks like porridge? It is as a result of coolant getting its way into oil. That's a disaster. It is not funny. Whatever is going on at this point, it is not funny. But oil is not what we are looking at here. We are looking at the aspect of white smoke. The causes of your coolant getting its way into the combustion chamber is either you have a crack in your block and the cylinder walls are cracked to a point, coolant is seeping through the crack and finding its way into the combustion chamber on top of the piston. As the piston rises, on top of it, there is a small chamber called the combustion chamber, where fuel and air mixture gets in, the spark plug sends spark, compression is done by the piston, the valves are opening and closing, and that is where the combustion happens. It is a very small space, a very, very small space where compression happens. Coolant has no business being there. It is not part of fuel and it should not be there. But if you have a crack in the cylinder wall, coolant is going to find its way there. Because as you know, coolant lands outside the piston. The cylinder lands outside to cool because the amount of compression that happens there causes very, very high temperatures. Very high temperatures. So if you have a crack, coolant is going to find its way into the combustion chamber on top of the piston. If the crack is at the top, if the crack is at the bottom, coolant will seep through, and this time round it will not find its way into the combustion chamber on top of the piston. It will find its way into the crankcase, mixing with oil, causing a very, very serious disaster. So if it is finding its way on top, it is going to be burnt together with the fuel-air mixture, producing white smoke. And it is not good. That's not good. That is one reason, a cracked cylinder wall. The second and the only final reason why you can get coolant finding its way into the combustion chamber is a blown head gasket. Because I want you to know that the block where the piston lands has something on top of it where the valves are sitting and the plugs called the cylinder head. So the block and the cylinder head have something in between them called the head gasket. A very thin sheet of metal. Some come with another material called asbestos. but there is a gasket on top of the cylinder and at the bottom of the head. This metal and this metal are not supposed to lie on each other. Because of the heat, they will crack, they will bend. So there is a gasket in between them. If that gasket is blown up, the holes through which the coolant lands to circulate in the engine to cool the engine messes up. So at some point, if the gasket is blown up, the coolant will find its way into the combustion chamber. You get that? So a blown up head gasket, a cracked cylinder wall, those are the two reasons why coolant can find its way into the combustion chamber and cause the white smoke. How do you solve this? Very simple. You inspect the cylinder. If there is a crack, find another cylinder. Find another block, the whole block. Find another one, a new one, a better one. Without the crack, no way of coolant finding its way into the combustion chamber. If the cylinder is not cracked, then replace the head gasket. If you replace the head gasket with a good one, the original head gaskets from the factory, you will be good to go. You will be good to go. Sometimes head gaskets get blown up because you at some point run low on coolant. So the temperatures in the engine ran higher than necessary, burning up the head gasket. So you should also check why at some point you ran out of coolant and the head gasket was blown up, so that you can create a situation whereby you're replacing the head gasket together with whatever caused the head gasket to be blown up. So find your way back into where the problem was coming from and solve it. If you solve that one, you will be good to go. If the cylinder is cracked, coolant is finding its way into the chamber, finding its way into the piston chamber, and going down into the crankcase, you can be very sure you're going to have an engine knock. Sooner than you can realize, your engine is knocking, because when the oil mixes with coolant, producing that jelly-like stuff that looks like yogurt, you can be very sure your crankshaft is gone. Your bearings are gone. A lot of things are going to go bad. So do not ignore white smoke at any point. It can be the most expensive problem to repair. The second smoke that you are likely to find coming out of your exhaust is the notorious black smoke. The most elusive smoke when it comes to mechanical language. People confuse the black smoke with a lot of things, and mostly in the auto industry, black smoke is associated with engine burning oil. And most of the mechanics that we have around will be very quick to recommend that you have to change the piston rings. You also have to change the valve seals. Many are going to tell you there is black smoke, that is oil, change piston rings, change valve seals. And this is one of the reasons why many people are frustrated out here with dead engines. A lot of expenses that are not even necessary, and the problems are not being solved even after spending a lot of money. Why? Because this is a misconception. Black smoke coming out of your engine has no relationship with oil being burnt. Black smoke and oil, not the same thing. Not the same thing. Black smoke, actually, if you touch whatever comes out of the exhaust, is actually dust. If you pick a piece of white paper and try to cross the exhaust pipe, when the engine is running, you leave the engine once. Whatever comes out of the exhaust is trapped by the white paper. If you touch it, it is actually dust, physical dust. This is your fuel running away. So black smoke is fuel. In simple language, black smoke is associated with fuel and nothing else but fuel. This is a condition that we call running too rich. Your engine is running rich. Running rich how? Too much fuel is being sent into the combustion chamber, too much more than what the air is at that time for it to be burnt. Meaning, you're getting a lot of fuel with very little air. And remember, fuel mixture is petrol and air. If your air is too little, then we have a condition called rich. If your air is too much and your petrol is too little, we get a situation we call lean mixture, Lean, lean mixture. But that one doesn't produce black smoke. You can tell there is a lean mixture from the temperatures because the engine is going to run too hot. It's going to run too hot. And if you check your spark plugs, they are going to come out looking white at the top. The tip is white. If you see a spark plug looking white at the tip, something is not right. There is very, very little fuel being mixed with a lot of air, causing the lean mixture. Leave that one aside. Let's go back to the leach, the opposite of lean. Too much fuel, very little air. What causes this? One, and the most notorious suspect in this case is your air filter. If your air filter is dirty, clogged, or you are using an aftermarket air filter which is allowing little air to get into the carburetor or into the EFI system, the throttle body, definitely you're going to have more fuel than air. And this is going to cause the leach mixture. So air filter is one of the suspects and the major suspect. So if you're getting black smoke from your exhaust, you start by checking the air filter. You could be having a problem with the amount of air getting through. The other suspect is your spark plug. Spark plug. Actually, when you're solving this problem of black smoke, you use the elimination method. You start from the most obvious, going back to the unusual suspects until you find the real suspect. So you're starting with what you know, what is easy to diagnose, going back into the most complicated ones. We have started with air filter. Your air filter is dirty, clogged, or it is long format, the long one, something is not right, and air is not getting in as required. After the air filter, you now go to the spark plug. You could be using very, very old spark plugs which are already out of the capacity to run, or you're using long spark plug. Maybe you have a fake one or a spark plug with less capacity to work in your engine. If you look at spark plugs, they all have numbers: CR9, CR8EA, D8, DPR8EA, D9. They have a lot of numbers, and those numbers mean a lot. They're not just there to identify spark plugs. They mean a lot, and one of what they mean is the heat ratio. Spark plugs have heat rating. You could be using CR8 while your engine requires CR7. You could be using D8 while your engine requires D9, DPR8EA, DR8EA, D8EA. They have different numbers which mean a lot. A lot. So for you to find the one that is required for your engine, do some retro internet search. Get to know what the manufacturer recommends. If you have the service manual, then you're good to go. Find the correct spark plug for your bike. Jump from the spark plug. Let's now go up into the carburetor. If you are using a motorcycle that runs on carburetor, you could be having a dirty carb, a clogged carb that has debris, particles, dust into the air chambers. Let me make this clear. When you pull the throttle, you do not increase the amount of fuel you are sending to the engine. Actually, your throttle is air, not fuel. Let's get this clear. What you do by pulling the throttle is not increasing fuel, you are actually increasing air. And I want you to look at the carburetors, look at your EFI system, and see what is opened by the throttle when you pull the throttle. What does it open? It opens the air chamber, something called a butterfly. There is that metal sheet that when you pull the throttle, it opens and closes, opens, closes. And if you look at where that hole is, it is directly attached to your air filter chamber, your air box. So what you are doing by pulling the throttle is not increasing fuel. You are actually increasing air, because air is the most important component in your combustion. And that is why when you pull the throttle, you are opening the air chamber to increase the flow of air. But remember, that air that you're opening up to is not the only air required to burn fuel. Your carburetor has other air holes. And that is why on the side of every carburetor, there is a screw called the air screw. You turn it to the clockwise side, you are closing it. You turn it unclockwise, you are opening it, increasing and decreasing the amount of air. You're trying to balance the air mixture, air fuel mixture by that screw. So your carburetor could be running on the long adjustment, and that is why you're having a lot of fuel getting into the chamber and very little air. So carburetor tuning should be the next stage. If your spark plug is okay, your air filter is okay, then your carburetor could be having problems. If you're running on a motorcycle that has EFI, then you do not have a lot of things. Maybe you just have to check the throttle body. If it is dirty, you just get it cleaned. Get some professional to open the throttle body, get it out of the bike, and clean it with carburetor cleaner. Just clean it, give it some time to dry, and then return it, you're good to go. But remember, the throttle body has sensors. And one of the sensors attached to the throttle body is the throttle position sensor, the TPS. You have to be very careful you don't wash that thing with carburetor cleaner. Do not wash that thing. That sensor and carburetor cleaner don't mix. So do not wash that one. If you have to wash that one because maybe it is also dirty, I would rather have you wash it with the WD-40, the penetrating oil, the WD-40, but not carburetor cleaner. Something else, do not clean your carburetors with WD-40, the penetrating oil. Use carburetor cleaner. So do not mix those things. Have a professional to do that, or if you understand these things, you can do them myself. Like for me, I usually do those things myself. Depending on how much experience you have in motorcycling, you can clean it yourself. But get a professional to help you do these things so that you do not mess up, especially if you're learning on EFI. You don't want to touch something that was not supposed to be touched. Maybe even after cleaning this one, the problem is still there. Look at what I just mentioned, the throttle position sensor, the TPS in EFI. Those sensors could be getting weak. There are some malfunctions or something. They are getting defective or something. It could be getting weak. It's not helping the EFI system balance the fuel and the air. So maybe you can have it replaced. If you're running on carburetor, check the carburetor jets. Maybe your jets have increased in terms of the hole size and they are sending more fuel than necessary. You can have a whole carburetor repair kit. They are there online. You can buy for whichever bike you have. You just replace every internal component of the carburetor. They come as a kit. They are called carburetor repair kit. You can buy it and have your carburetor rebuilt afresh into a brand new one. It's very easy for you to solve those things, because when a carburetor is running too rich, a lot of fuel is getting wasted. So your bike is consuming a lot of fuel, not performing properly, a lot of smoke, a lot of jerking, a lot of heating up, a lot of shenanigans that are not necessary. So if you can get the carburetor kit, the better. If it is not the carburetor, you have now crossed over. It's not the carburetor or the EFI system now. Let's find where the spark comes from. If the spark plugs are okay, in good shape, the light spark plug, where do they get their energy from? Their energy comes from a very small gadget called the shooting coil. Shooting coil. Those things can go bad, can become defective. So if your spark plugs are okay, you look at the wire that brings the energy from the shooting coil. It's called the lead wire, together with the cap that holds the spark plug. You see, there is that plastic cap that holds the spark plug with some metal stuff inside. Start from there, going backwards. Look for any loose connections. Look for, actually, if you look at that lead wire, you remove the cap, you're going to see green stuff coming out of that wire, and it can tell you there is loose connection. You just tighten it properly, that problem is done. If that is not where the problem is coming from, go directly to where this wire comes from, that small gadget called the shooting coil. It could be bad. Just have it replaced. If that is not where the problem is coming from, ask yourself, where does this shooting coil get its power from? From the CDI. Look at the CDI. Try and replace it. Okay? Try and replace it. You use the elimination method, from the most common to the least common, to the items that you can least suspect, like the CDI, the shooting coil, the lead wires, the plug cap. These are things that most of the times we ignore. If you are using the EFI system, you could check on your ECU, because carburetor bikes don't have ECU, they don't have the computer. They are regulated by the CDIs. The EFI bikes don't have those CDI things. Most of them don't have, but you'll find some of them complicated. They have ECU and some CDIs here. But the ECU is the gadget that regulates functions of an EFI system. So if there is a problem with how much fuel is getting into your combustion chamber, the TPS, the throttle position sensor, or the MAF sensor, the mass airflow sensor that is attached to the airbox. Because you know EFI system is regulated by sensors. The other side of carburetor is just manual stuff. If dust gets into some hole, it clogs it. That's all. If you remove it, you're done. But for the EFI, a lot of computer stuff happen. So that one requires professionals to diagnose. Thank God there are some machines that have been designed to diagnose these problems just by plugging in some gadget, and then you can read all the errors and the check engines and stuff. You can be able to tell where the problem is. That is what makes the EFI system even better to diagnose problems, because if you have some errors on the dashboard, definitely you're gonna get the results of what is causing the errors, and you get that through some computer diagnosis, you're good to go. And remember, if your EFI system has an issue, definitely check engine light is going to pop up on the dashboard. Check engine light straight away. So you already know there is a problem even before you notice there is a problem, because the EFI system has already sent a notification to you through a check engine, a yellow light popping up on your dashboard to tell you something is not working as it should. Please have it checked. Just have it checked. So for you to solve these problems, you have to find which suspect to deal with through elimination method. Try and go back from what you know, what you suspect, to the list of what you can suspect. Definitely you're going to find something. Definitely you're going to find something. I want you to note that if you get dirty fuel or adulterated fuel, fuel mixed with something else, you know, we live in a world where people get so greedy. You find petrol stations mixing petrol with kerosene, petrol with diesel, trying to make a killing because of the fluctuating fuel prices. If you get something like this, definitely it is going to mess up the whole system, and you can get that black smoke immediately. You're gonna get it immediately. If diesel gets very close to your combustion chamber when you're landing on petrol engine, smoke is going to come out. The engine is going to misbehave. You're gonna stall. You can damage a lot of stuff. So if you realize you have consumed some fuel from a petrol station and your bike is starting to misbehave, it is advisable that you park it and find some means of towing that bike to the garage to have it checked immediately. Do not force it. Do not force it, especially if you are running on EFI. For carburetor bikes, sometimes we push them. Sometimes we push them, forcing them to burn whatever it is, or you can drain the fuel, get clean one, immediately you just gonna get off. But for EFI system, it is not that easy. The third and the final exhaust smoke that comes out of your bike is the blue smoke, the dark blue smoke. Most of the times people mistake the dark blue smoke with the black smoke. They're not the same. You're gonna be very, very keen for you to notice the difference between the black smoke and the blue one. But here is the difference. If you shake your exhaust with a finger, you just put your finger into the exhaust, the tip of the exhaust, you come out with black dust. You already know what we said about the black dust. It's a result of the black smoke, and we already know what black smoke means. But if you're coming out with something looking like it is wet, whatever is coming out of your exhaust tip is black and it is wet, that one is not fuel. That's why that one is not fuel. If it is coming out wet, that one is not fuel. Also, if you are very keen on how the smoke comes out, if it is consistent smoke while you're riding, there is that smoke that is consistent. Black smoke is not so consistent, and it is also not very easy to see while you're riding. It's not very easy unless it is too much. It's not very easy. But for the blue smoke, it is consistent, it is visible, and it is too much. This is the smoke that comes out of your engine because of engine burning oil. Now, this is where we discuss oil. I told you in the black smoke, oil is not involved. Do not mix that one. Oil smoke is blue, dark blue, and it is consistent. Okay, it is consistent. Light from the morning when the engine is cold, or maybe it waits until the engine warms up, and after that it is consistent. It is consistent. And mostly when you are accelerating, that's when you notice a lot of it coming out. When you leave the engine, the RPMs are rising up, that's the time you realize a lot of that smoke is coming out. It is the smoke of the engine burning oil. As we know, engine runs on oil for lubrication and for maintaining pressure, maintaining compression. Okay? Pressure. And when the combustion is happening, when the engine is running, your piston is going up and down, attached to the crankshaft at the bottom, coming up to the cylinder head, very close to the plugs, very close to the valves, compressing air and the fuel mixture. The spark plug is sending spark and the explosions are happening, and that is how the engine is running. Okay? Down here, we have a lot of oil. Like for my engine, the Transap, I use 2.3 liter of oil. 2.3. My former bike, the Benelli TNT, was using 3 liters of oil. The inline fours, the CBRs, the Gixxers 1000, yeah, the Kawasaki ZX10, ZX whatever, those inline fours, most of them use 4 liters. 4 liters of oil. So we are talking about too much oil in that engine. A lot of compression in that engine. There is a lot of oil pressure. So if your piston is not locking oil out of the combustion chamber, definitely oil is going to get there and mix with air and fuel mixture. During the explosion, that oil is going to be burnt and sent out of the exhaust system through the exhaust valve as blue smoke. Your piston is running thousands of revolutions per minute as the dashboard reads the RPMs. 1 means 1,000 revolutions per minute. 1,000 revolutions per minute, that's a lot of speed. 2, 3, 4, 5, 10, 10,000 revolutions per minute. That's a lot of speed. A lot of it. So, the piston is designed to lock the oil out of the chamber. As it rises and comes down, the oil comes up with it, goes down with it. It is locking it with the piston rings. The rings are there to lock oil out of the combustion chamber. They lubricate the cylinder wall. As the piston moves up and down, it doesn't scratch the cylinder wall. So the oil is coming up to lubricate the cylinder wall, being wiped down, comes up again, down, but doesn't go beyond the line where the piston rings are. If it goes up, then it means your piston rings are not locking oil properly. Maybe they are worn out, they are cracked, or the cylinder itself, the wall itself has scratch marks, tiny scratch marks, because maybe you had an issue with piston rings earlier, they got replaced, but they had already caused damage to the cylinder wall, but the cylinder was not replaced. So it was left with those marks. They can allow tiny droplets of oil to move up into the combustion chamber and get burnt. So piston rings are the suspects here. The other suspect is the valve seals. As valves open and close to send fuel in, the exhaust valve opening up to send the exhaust gases out through the exhaust system, when they are closing and opening, they are moving through the valve seals. And those seals are supposed to be tight enough to lock any oil that is lubricating the cylinder head from getting into the combustion chamber. So if your seals are cracked or they are worn out, they have been used for a very long time, maybe your bike was parked for some years, they got dried up and they started cracking, something is not right with the seals. Oil is going to find its way into the combustion chamber. This one is not difficult to diagnose because you already know the suspects. It's either the piston rings or the valve seals, because those are the things that move and they have to lubricate, but they also have to lock oil outside of the combustion chamber. So it is not difficult to solve this one. What you need is to find the real culprit. But a word of caution: if you have to replace the seals because maybe they are the ones that are misbehaving, do not just be quick to replace the seals into the old valves and just lock up the engine and you're good to go. Trust me, you are not good to go. If you are replacing the seals, it is recommended that you replace the piston rings, the valves, and the seals. Piston rings, valves, and seals. This is the reason. Whatever made the suspect to misbehave, whether it is the valves, the seals, or the piston rings, whatever made them to misbehave must have in some way affected the others. Must have in some way affected the others. So you could come and solve the problem that you can actually see right now. But because there is a lot of pressure in the oil, a lot of pressure and a lot of movement and a lot of heat, you're going to transfer that problem from where it was to somewhere else. If the rings are also old, you lock up the valves. There is no leakage of oil through the valves. Oil could start now leaking through the piston rings. If they are of the same age, they have been moving at the same speed all that time, it is recommended that you replace all of them. And if you have some good budget, you can replace the piston itself, put new rings, replace the valves, and replace the seals, 4 of them. If you replace those things, and you pray to God that you don't have a problem with the cylinder wall. If the cylinder wall is clean, it is not cracked, it is not scratched. If you replace the rings, the piston itself, the valve, and the seals, and also remember to replace the gasket. Remember I mentioned head gasket somewhere. It is the gasket that joins the cylinder and the cylinder head in between, and it is the one that holds compression. If you replace the 5 items, trust me, that engine is brand new again. Brand new again. The reason why you need to replace the gasket is head gasket doesn't entertain a lot of movement. If you move it in, out, a couple of times, it loses shape, starts to get bent, and definitely starts to get cracked. If you put it back again you can be very sure it is not going to hold compression the same way it was supposed to hold earlier on, the same way it was holding on. So it is not going to function normally as it was required. So you could solve the brew smoke by locking oil outside of the combustion chamber, but you end up opening an avenue for white smoke where the coolant is now going to start seeping into the combustion chamber. So you could solve the brew smoke but introduce the white smoke problem, because you have moved the head gasket, put it down, put it back again, put it somewhere, somebody bent it, it doesn't entertain a lot of movement, the head gasket. So try and have that one replaced. Remember, very, very important, do not at any point use silicone with the cylinder head. That place where the gasket lies, do not be cheated by anyone to use silicone, because maybe the head gasket is looking old. Let's just use silicone. Please don't do that. Silicone is going to lock up the tiny holes through which the oil is supposed to move. It can also lock the small holes in which the coolant is supposed to move, because these holes are different. They're different. This one is for oil, this one is for coolant. They don't mix. If this one gets locked up by some tiny silicone, you can be very sure the cylinder head is not getting oil. And the camshafts are going to start heating up, grinding with each other. The timing stuff, the timing chains, the tappets, whatever it is up there, is going to get worn out pretty fast, and your engine is going to overheat. So it is recommended you get a new head gasket. Do not use silicone. So now, look at this. The white smoke, the black smoke, the blue smoke. Which one have you observed from your motorcycle? Which one have you ever had to deal with? From the explanation I have given, which one do you think it is the most dangerous? Which one can you ignore? Should you actually ignore any of them? In my opinion, no. Do not ignore any of it, because it is a sign of something wrong going on in your combustion chamber. My name is Meshach. This is Two Wheels Paradise. If you have watched this video up to this point, please hit the like button. Hit the like button. Share this video with someone. Let someone else also learn this. See you around. See you next time, and happy holidays in advance. Take care of yourself. We still have next year to ride our motorcycles. Our families love us. Our bikes are just there for us. So take care of yourself. Do not drink and ride. God be with you.